Have you ever wondered why certain people seem to enter your life at the exact moment you need them? Sometimes to comfort, other times to challenge you. A sibling who sparks your anger, a friend whose success stirs quiet jealousy, a parent whose words cut deeper than expected. Carl Jung believed these encounters are never random. They are relationship triggers, mirrors reflecting the hidden parts of yourself, the unlived dreams, the unresolved emotions, the strengths waiting to emerge. In this journey, we'll uncover how even difficult relationships can lead to personal growth, emotional healing, and deeper self-discovery through relationships. You'll see that every meeting and every parting holds meaning, shaping the person you're becoming. You're not alone in this work. We all walk this path. So stay with me, share your reflections in the comments, and subscribe if you're ready to transform life's connections into milestones on your journey. Our first step begins with a brother you never understood. There's a man who has spent years in a quiet battle with his older brother. Every holiday gathering, every family decision turns into a clash. His brother insists on controlling the smallest details, where they sit, what they eat, how they speak, and he feels suffocated. To him, it's proof of an overbearing personality, an ego that refuses to step aside. But Carl Jung would offer a different lens. This isn't just about the brother's behavior, it's about the shadow, those parts of ourselves we deny, suppress, or pretend not to have, yet spot instantly in others. In Jung's view, these relationship triggers are not random irritations. They are signs that something unacknowledged within you is asking to be seen. The common mistake is to believe the problem exists entirely out there, to see the other person as the obstacle to your peace. Many cut ties, thinking personal growth comes from removing the source of discomfort. But Jung would suggest the discomfort is the source of growth. When you reject your brother's controlling nature, it may be because you've disowned your own need for order, influence, or leadership, qualities that in balance could serve you. It's easier to point outward than to look inward, yet avoiding the mirror means avoiding the message. The beauty of Jung's approach is that it transforms conflict into an invitation. Instead of asking, "How do I get him to change?" you begin to ask, "What is he showing me about myself?" This shift doesn't excuse unhealthy behavior, but it does return your power. You move from being a passive target of someone else's flaws to an active participant in your unconscious mind growth. Imagine this. You're under crushing pressure at work, and a colleague starts micromanaging your every move. The frustration feels identical to the family dinners with your brother. In that moment, you have two choices. You can repeat the pattern, resent, withdraw, complain, or you can see the parallel, recognize the shadow, and explore how your relationship with control might be incomplete. This is not easy work. It demands presence, honesty, and a willingness to stand in the discomfort long enough to learn from it. Yet each time you do, the mirror becomes less threatening and more like a compass. For those ready to act, start with a simple practice. The next time you feel an intense emotional reaction to someone's behavior, pause before speaking. Ask yourself, if this trait lived in me, how would it serve me? How have I been avoiding it? Write your thoughts down without judgment. Over time, you'll see patterns, clues to the parts of yourself waiting to be integrated. This is the real work of personal growth, not by cutting away the people who challenge you, but by using those challenges as the raw material for becoming whole. And when you begin to see each conflict as a mirror rather than a battlefield, you'll be ready to explore another kind of trigger, one that hides behind a friend's smile and their sudden success. Like a mirror catching a different angle of light, conflict with a sibling shows one reflection, but the glow or glare of a friend's success reveals another. You've been walking your path, maybe through uncertainty or under the weight of stalled progress, when suddenly your closest friend announces a promotion, a book deal, a dream wedding. The celebration is genuine on the surface, yet deep inside, There's a tightness, a quiet voice asking, "Why not me?" This is where Carl Jung's insight becomes both unsettling and liberating. He would tell you that jealousy in friendships is rarely about the other person's achievement. It is about the unlived potential within yourself, the parts of your own life you've left untouched, ignored, or buried beneath responsibility. In moments like this, the common mistake is to judge the feeling as a flaw in character, to label yourself as petty or small-minded. Many people suppress the reaction, masking it with extra cheer or avoiding the friend altogether, thinking this will preserve the bond. But in doing so, they also bury the very message their psyche is trying to deliver. Jung's perspective offers a different way through. Instead of shaming yourself for feeling envy, you can see it as a signal, a flare shot up from the depths of your unconscious mind, telling you there is a dream, a skill, a path that has been waiting for you. It's not about taking something away from your friend. It's about reclaiming something from yourself. Consider this. In today's culture, where social media feeds us a constant stream of highlight reels, you might scroll through endless announcements of promotions, travels, or personal milestones. Each one can act as a relationship trigger, igniting a mix of admiration and discomfort. Rather than numbing out or spiraling into comparison, pause to ask, what in their success reminds me of a vision I once had? How have I drifted from it? This reframing shifts you from a passive consumer of someone else's story to an active author of your own. For example, imagine a woman who has always dreamed of starting her own business but chose a stable corporate job for security. When her best friend launches a thriving startup, she feels an almost physical ache. Jung would say that ache is the unlived life knocking on her door. She can ignore it, or she can use it as fuel to take a class, draft a plan, make one small move toward her vision. The choice is not between celebrating her friend and pursuing her dream. It is about doing both, because the energy behind jealousy can be alchemized into momentum. If you've been with me this far, it's because you dare to look inward, even when the reflection stings. That perseverance is rare, and it's the foundation of emotional healing. So here's a practice. The next time a friend's success stirs that quiet ache, write down exactly what you admire about their achievement, every detail that excites or unsettles you. Then underline the elements that also exist as dormant desires in your own life. Commit to one tangible action in the next week to awaken just one of them. It could be as simple as researching a course, making a call, or sketching a vision. Over time, this habit transforms comparison into a compass. And as you learn to turn envy into inspiration, you'll be prepared to face an even more intimate challenge. The kind of trigger that comes not from friends or siblings, but from the voices of those who raised you. Just as envy can awaken the dreams you've set aside, the sting of a parent's words can unearth something far older, layers of memory you didn't realize still lived inside you. Picture this. You're a grown adult, raising your child, making decisions with care and intention. Then, during a visit, your mother remarks that you're not doing it right. Her tone may be casual, but the words pierce deep, stirring a mix of defensiveness, sadness, and even shame. In the present moment, it feels like a critique of your competence, yet Carl Jung would invite you to look deeper. He spoke of complexes, emotional clusters formed from unresolved experiences in our past, that get activated when certain buttons are pressed. These aren't random reactions. They're echoes from earlier chapters of your life, often tied to moments when you felt unseen, powerless, or not enough. The common response is to either push back in anger or retreat in silence, believing the only way to protect oneself is to win the argument or avoid the situation altogether. But Jung's perspective shifts the focus from winning to understanding. When a parent's criticism stirs such intensity, it's not just about them. It's about what their words mirror in you. This is self-discovery through relationships in its rawest form. Not the kind that happens in calm reflection, but the kind that bursts forth in the heat of a conversation you wish you weren't having. Think about how many people carry the weight of these complexes into other parts of life. Overreacting to feedback from a boss, interpreting a partner's suggestion as judgment, or hesitating to take risks for fear of falling short. Each of these moments is connected by an invisible thread back to those early experiences. The power lies in noticing the thread and tracing it to its source. For instance, if your mother's comment makes you feel inadequate, ask yourself, when was the first time I felt this way? What was happening? Who was there? This simple questioning turns the reaction into an investigation, transforming emotional pain into a pathway toward clarity. You've stayed with this journey long enough to know that growth rarely comes from comfort. The fact that you're still here, listening, means you're willing to meet these reactions with curiosity rather than avoidance. That is rare, and it is powerful. So here's a practice. The next time you feel the surge of emotion after a parent's remark, pause before replying. In that pause, silently identify the age you feel in that moment. Are you 5, 12, 16? This small act reconnects you to the root of the feeling, giving you the space to choose your response instead of being swept away by it. Over time, this awareness becomes a shield, not one that blocks connection, but one that filters criticism, so it no longer wounds the child within. And once you can stand in that space with your parents, you'll find it easier to face another kind of trigger, the ones that arrive not from family history, but from the people you work alongside every day. Once you've traced the threads of old wounds with family, it becomes impossible not to notice how similar patterns emerge in the wider world, especially in the workplace, where roles, deadlines, and personalities collide. There is that one teammate, the one who always seems to speak over you in meetings, correct your work without being asked, or insist their way is the only way. At first, it feels purely situational, just another difficult colleague. But Carl Jung would suggest that when someone consistently pushes all your buttons, it's rarely just about them. These are relationship triggers. Moments when another person's behavior touches the edges of qualities you've disowned in yourself. The common misstep is to focus entirely on changing the other person or avoiding them altogether. You might ask to be transferred, keep your head down, or quietly resent them, believing that relief comes only when they disappear from your daily life. Yet Jung's approach flips that thinking. What if the discomfort is a mirror showing you a side of yourself you've never integrated? For instance, if their assertiveness grates on you, perhaps you've avoided your capacity for directness or authority, labeling it as pushy. If their attention to detail feels stifling, maybe it's because you've distanced yourself from your meticulous side, fearing it will slow you down. These qualities, when balanced, are not flaws, but tools. And when we reject them in ourselves, we are far more likely to find them intolerable in others. Picture a high-pressure project where every decision matters, deadlines loom, and this teammate's controlling nature intensifies. Instead of spiraling into frustration, you can step back and ask, why does this bother me so much? Where in my life could this quality, if it were mine, actually help me? This reframing doesn't excuse poor behavior, but it shifts the locus of control back to you. And as you've shown by staying engaged with this journey, your willingness to examine your reactions is the very thing that turns daily irritation into life lessons worth keeping. Here's a practice to bring this into focus. The next time you feel that sharp rush of annoyance, jot down 3 words that describe the other person's behavior. Then write one way each of those qualities could serve you if you owned them consciously. Keep it private, free from judgment, and treat it like a personal growth experiment. Over time, you may notice that what once felt like an attack becomes an unexpected teacher. And when you can stand in that awareness with colleagues, you'll be ready for the subtler lessons, the ones that come not through constant friction, but through the quiet drifting apart from people you once thought would always be by your side. Some lessons arrive through constant friction, but others come quietly in the slow fading of a bond you once thought unbreakable. You notice the calls become less frequent, the updates more surface level, until one day you realize you no longer know the daily rhythms of a friend who once felt like family. At first, it can feel like a personal failure, as though you didn't try hard enough to keep the connection alive. Yet Carl Jung would remind you that not all relationships are meant to span a lifetime. Some appear to serve a specific chapter of our personal growth, to help us navigate a certain terrain of the unconscious mind, and when that work is complete, they gently step aside. The mistake many make is to view this drifting apart solely through the lens of loss. In clinging too tightly, we risk turning a once vibrant connection into something stagnant, weighed down by the pressure to stay exactly as it was. Jung's lens invites a shift from holding on in fear to letting go in gratitude. Think back to your history. Perhaps it was a college roommate who taught you how to speak up, or a travel companion who helped you embrace spontaneity. Those moments shaped you. The distance that followed doesn't erase their impact. In many ways, it affirms it, because you took what was needed for that stage of individuation and carried it forward. In a culture that glorifies lifelong bonds as the measure of worth, it takes courage to accept that growth sometimes means walking different paths. Imagine two friends who met in the fire of late-night study sessions and cheap takeout, bound together by ambition and shared uncertainty. 10 years later, one moves into corporate leadership while the other chooses a quieter life of art and community work. Their worlds diverge, not from conflict, but from evolution. Both are living out different aspects of their psyche's calling, and in that difference, the friendship finds its natural resting place. If you've reached this point in the journey, it's because you understand that endings are not always tragedies. They can be signs of a cycle completing itself. That awareness is rare, and it's a mark of true emotional maturity. Here's a practice to honor it. Write a letter to an old friend you've drifted from, not to send, but to acknowledge the role they played in your life. Name the lessons, the laughter, even the hard truths they helped you face. Then, close it with a simple wish for their path ahead. This transforms the ache of absence into a quiet respect, freeing you to step fully into the relationships and opportunities that belong to your present. And as you grow more at peace with the natural ebb and flow of connection, you'll be ready to face the next mirror, one that often appears in the familiar setting of family gatherings where unspoken judgments can stir the deepest parts of the self. Just as the quiet drifting of old friendships can reveal the natural rhythm of human connection, returning to the familiar orbit of family often exposes a different kind of truth, one that hides beneath smiles, small talk, and tradition. You walk into a holiday gathering, greeted by familiar faces, yet beneath the warmth, there's a current of tension. A subtle comment about your career, a raised eyebrow at your lifestyle, a well-meaning but loaded question about your choices. These moments can feel like tiny cuts, but Carl Jung would say they are more than casual judgments. They are invitations from the archetype of the judge, a force within the psyche that brings us face to face with our self-doubt and fear of being misunderstood. The instinctive reaction is to defend, to explain, to prove your worth, or to retreat entirely. Many people leave such gatherings feeling diminished, replaying conversations in their heads, convinced they were being measured and found lacking. Yet Jung's perspective shifts the frame. These are not just external verdicts. They are mirrors reflecting the inner court you already carry, the one that whispers you're not enough. In this light, family gatherings become arenas for self-discovery through relationships, places where emotional healing begins by noticing the way your body tightens, your voice changes, and your thoughts race. Imagine you've been working toward a goal that doesn't fit the family's traditional definition of success. At dinner, an uncle makes an offhand remark that your work sounds like a hobby. The words trigger a wave of irritation and doubt. You could snap back or shut down, but there's another choice. Pause, recognize the archetype at play, and ask yourself, am I reacting to his opinion or my lingering insecurity? This small shift reclaims your power. By seeing the judgment as a projection screen for your inner critic, you create space to respond from clarity instead of wounded pride. If you've stayed with this journey so far, it's because you dare to meet these mirrors head-on. That willingness is rare, and it's what transforms family events from emotional minefields into training grounds for self-awareness. A simple practice for the next gathering is this. When a comment stirs discomfort, take a slow breath and silently name what you're feeling. Shame, defensiveness, anxiety. Then, instead of pushing the feeling away, get curious. Ask, where in my past did I first feel this? The answer may surprise you, and it will almost always point to a deeper story that has little to do with the person speaking. Over time, you may find that the same remarks lose their sting, not because others have changed, but because you've met the inner judge and learned to stand before it without shrinking. And once you can hold your ground in that space, you'll be ready to explore an even harder truth. The ache that comes when someone you thought would stand beside you in hard times quietly steps away. After learning to face the inner judge at family tables, another mirror often appears in moments of personal crisis. The sudden emptiness left when someone you trusted chooses distance over presence. You reach out during a season of loss, illness, or uncertainty, expecting the comfort of a familiar voice, only to find silence or a polite excuse. The absence can feel heavier than the struggle itself. Carl Jung would see this as more than disappointment. He would see it as a potent relationship trigger, one that brings the fear of abandonment from the unconscious into sharp focus. In these moments, the common reaction is to retreat into hurt or anger, to label the friend as unreliable, or to decide you were wrong about the bond altogether. While this may feel protective, it can also seal away the deeper insight waiting beneath the pain. Jung's work reminds us that the emotional charge here is not only about the friend's actions, it's about the earlier experiences they awaken. That pang in your chest may belong as much to a childhood memory of being left alone as it does to the present event. By recognizing this, the story shifts. Instead of asking only, why did they disappear? You begin to wonder, what does this stir in me that is older than this friendship? This perspective does not excuse neglect, but it transforms the situation from a fixed judgment into an opportunity for self-understanding. Imagine losing a job unexpectedly and realizing that the friend you've known for years fades into the background. At first, you interpret it as proof of their lack of care. But upon reflection, you recall how, as a child, you avoided asking for help, fearing it would burden others. Now, when support is missing, the ache is amplified. The gift, if you're willing to see it, is clarity about your patterns of need and the ways you've hidden them. You've shown persistence by walking this far into the journey, and that persistence matters. It's what allows you to hold the discomfort long enough to hear its message. A practical way to work with this is to write down the qualities you seek most in connection: trust, consistency, empathy, and then, for each one, list how you can also offer it to yourself. This does not replace the desire for others to show up, but it builds a foundation where your sense of worth is not entirely dependent on their presence. Over time, this self-sufficiency makes it easier to hold space for relationships as they are, without collapsing when they fall short. And when you can meet absence without losing your center, you will be ready to face a more surprising trigger, the irritation that rises not from neglect, but from watching a sibling make choices that challenge the life you've chosen for yourself. When absence no longer shakes your center, a different kind of tension can surface. One that doesn't come from who's missing, but from who is fully present, living in a way that unsettles you. Your sibling announces they've quit their steady job to travel the world, and instead of admiration, you feel a surge of irritation. You might tell yourself it's because their choice is impractical or risky, but Carl Jung would invite you to look deeper. Often, the sharpest annoyance toward those closest to us springs from the unlived life, the parts of our potential we have left dormant. The common mistake is to frame this reaction as moral high ground, convincing ourselves we're simply more responsible or realistic. Yet this interpretation can hide the truth. What disturbs us may be the reflection of a freedom we once longed for, but never claimed. Jung saw such moments as opportunities for personal growth, a kind of self-discovery through relationships that work not by imitation, but by recognition. That pang of frustration is less about your sibling's decision and more about the suppressed desire it awakens in you. In today's climate, where many feel pressured to maintain stability in uncertain times, it's easy to sideline dreams for the sake of safety. But when someone close steps outside those boundaries, they can unintentionally illuminate the invisible walls you've built around your own life. Imagine you've always wanted to take a year off to write, paint, or explore a passion, yet you've postponed it for years. Now your sibling does something bold, and rather than inspiring you, it triggers defensiveness. Jung would say this is your psyche's way of holding up a mirror, asking, "What have you set aside, and why?" If you've stayed with me through these reflections, it's because you value honesty with yourself, even when it stings. That willingness is what allows moments of discomfort to become catalysts instead of resentments. To work with this insight, try a simple practice. Write down the exact qualities in your sibling's choice that bother you most: spontaneity, risk-taking, independence. Then, next to each, note one small way you could invite that quality into your own life without dismantling your current stability. It could be as simple as taking a short solo trip, signing up for a class, or committing a few hours each week to a long-neglected interest. Over time, this approach transforms irritation into a compass, pointing toward neglected parts of yourself. And once you learn to read that compass with clarity, you'll be prepared for the next mirror, one that reflects not the life you wish you had, but the boundaries you fought to build, tested in the daily frictions of living with someone else. When you begin to see irritation toward a sibling as a mirror for your unclaimed desires, it becomes easier to recognize that many of life's sharpest edges are not meant to wound you, but to shape you. Nowhere is this clearer than in the small but relentless conflicts that arise when you share your space, your routines, and your energy with another person. Picture a tense apartment where you and your roommate have argued over dishes left in the sink, noise late at night, or boundaries crossed without asking. At first, each dispute feels like a separate annoyance, a problem to fix so you can return to peace. Yet Carl Jung would say that recurring conflict is not merely a disruption. It is a test, a crucible where the psyche works toward integration. The common misstep is to see the other person as the obstacle to comfort, focusing solely on changing their habits or avoiding the confrontation altogether. But this approach bypasses the deeper life lessons embedded in the tension. Jung's lens reframes these moments as opportunities for emotional healing, where each disagreement is a kind of dialogue between the conscious self and the unconscious forces seeking expression. Imagine you have a pattern of avoiding difficult conversations, only to find yourself living with someone who forces them into the open again and again. Each clash becomes a mirror, reflecting your relationship to boundaries, self-respect, and communication. It's uncomfortable, but it's also a chance to practice the parts of yourself that have been underdeveloped. If you've continued this far into the journey, it's because you have the willingness to see conflict not as failure, but as a catalyst. That willingness is rare, and it's what turns repetitive frustration into a roadmap for personal growth. To work with this consciously, try a simple practice. The next time you feel yourself bracing for an argument, pause and name the value you are protecting. Respect, quiet, fairness. And then state it clearly, without attack or apology. This act shifts the focus from blaming the other person to standing firmly in your clarity. Over time, you may notice that these once draining encounters begin to carry a different weight. They become milestones, marking how far you've come in embodying the self you are becoming. And as you step back and see the arc of all these encounters, from siblings to friends, from family to strangers, you'll begin to realize that each relationship, whether fleeting or enduring, has been a chapter in the same story. The unfolding of who you are meant to be. Every relationship we've explored, from the sibling who mirrors your hidden traits, to the friend whose success stirs quiet envy, to the family member whose words awaken old wounds, has been part of the same deeper journey. Carl Jung taught that these relationship triggers are not accidents. They are invitations to personal growth, to unconscious mind growth, to profound self-discovery through relationships. Some connections challenge your boundaries, some drift away when their role is complete, and some disappear when you need them most. Yet in each, there is a gift, a mirror reflecting the unlived life within you, the values you hold, and the parts of yourself waiting to be integrated. The simple practice I leave with you is this. The next time someone's words or actions strike a nerve, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, if this moment is a teacher, what is it showing me about myself? Then write it down. Over time, these notes will become a personal map of life lessons, guiding you through emotional healing toward a more authentic self. You're not alone in this work. Every human being meets certain people for reasons far deeper than chance. So share your own story in the comments. Tell us about the mirrors you've faced and the growth they've sparked. If this journey has resonated with you, subscribe and join a community that values turning life's conflicts into opportunities for clarity. Because when you walk through the world with this awareness, you'll see that every meeting, every parting, and every moment of connection is not just part of your life. It is your life, unfolding in perfect, imperfect rhythm.